Hello and welcome to this conversation. I'm Safiyyah and I'm a mindset and resilience coach, and I help professionals to recreate the relationship that they're in with their careers and to recreate their leadership brands to ones that are energizing, empowering, uplifting, and purposeful and meaningful and aligned for them so that they can experience their career in a way that doesn't feel draining and depleting and even sometimes defeating. In this video, I want to invite you to a conversation with yourself about how you can unearth the resources that you need that are definitely within you so that you can move past the barriers that you may be perceiving in your career. Some of these barriers may be internal barriers, and some of these barriers may be external barriers. Either which way, the responsibility and the accountability to move your career forward is yours, and you have the tools on board to do exactly that. Now, I want to start off by asking you if you're aware of what glass ceilings are. Perhaps you're experiencing and confronting glass ceilings already in your career or presently in your career. Maybe you've just moved past a glass ceiling. And maybe you're not quite sure what a glass ceiling is, and so you're not sure if you've encountered one or not. Now, a glass ceiling is an invisible barrier that exists in an organization or an industry that holds certain people behind from progressing in their careers and even just taking up space in an organization and having access to resources. Someone who is impacted by a glass ceiling typically feels excluded. They don't feel as though they're truly part of the team. And a glass ceiling is not only about progress, it's very important to recognize that glass ceilings is truly about being able to belong in an organization. Now, people who are impacted by glass ceilings are typically people who are abundantly qualified and experienced to take up positions and to take up space in an organization. But they are either excluded from growth or there is retribution that they experience in one form or the other when they do speak up and share their ideas and their opinions. So perhaps now you have a better understanding of what a glass ceiling is. What is really critical to realize is that no single individual can dismantle glass ceilings. Structures in an organization or even in industry is needed to grapple with the creation or the construction of the glass ceilings in that organization or that industry. The leadership structures in particular needs to grapple with the ways in which those glass ceilings are constructed in the first place, and then to start understanding the experiences of the people and to start experimenting with creating new experiences. And then once they've come across those new ways of creating inclusion for people who are previously excluded or hitherto excluded, they would want to create practices that will integrate the inclusion of these people, regardless of what the nature of the glass ceiling was. It is also important to recognize that glass ceiling dismantling is not something that an organization does once and then never attends to again. This is a practice that we have to return to over and over and over. People that are impacted by one glass ceiling in an organization may not be impacted by another. And people who are not impacted by a glass ceiling at one point in time may find themselves impacted by another. We are social organizations, and human beings are social organisms that are constantly fluctuating and moving. And so there's a vigilance that the organization has to have in place to make sure that it is not excluding people, worthy people, from great opportunities. The truth, though, is that not all the barriers that you are going to encounter in your career are always going to be external barriers, such as glass ceilings in an organization. Even if a glass ceiling is the reason why you are struggling to progress in your career, you still have to look at the internal glass ceilings that you may be having in your psyche, in your inner world, that is holding you back from addressing and engaging with the external glass ceiling. No single person grows in their career without confronting barriers and challenges to their growth. Every single human being is offered opportunities, and with those opportunities, there's a need for recreation. And the process of having to recreate ourselves always brings us to some or the other form of glass ceiling that exists within us. Now, the glass ceilings that exist within you may not be known as glass ceilings. They may be known as self-limiting beliefs. They may be known as gaps in your power. They may be known as a lack of knowledge and understanding, and that's something that you have to overcome. But these are literally barriers where we talk ourselves out of opportunities rather than into opportunities. We are held back by challenges rather than being willing and brave and courageous to confront those challenges and those barriers. So the glass ceilings that might exist for you, you have other names for it. You may call it low confidence. You may call it a low level of motivation. You may call it underqualified. You may call it perfectionism. Or maybe it's self-doubt. Or maybe it's the ever-popular procrastination. All of these are symptomatic of something that lies a bit deeper than just those behaviors that act as barriers to our growth. These human behaviors, self-doubt, low confidence, all of these rest upon a series of stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves. They rest on the beliefs that we have about ourselves and the environment around us. And until we become very clear about what our stories are and what our beliefs are, they typically run our lives without our conscious involvement. We are so caught up in them that we are completely unaware of them. And for us to really become the authorities of our careers and of our lives, we've got to become very, very clear on what the stories are, what the beliefs are, that we are accepting as truths and that we are allowing ourselves to be held back by. Now, one of the things that is a truism is that our stories sit at the apex, at the very, very top of our identities. The sum of who we are is all those stories and all those beliefs that we have. And what is equally true is that we cannot engage with the world around us beyond the capacity of the stories and the beliefs that we have within us. And so if we want to play a bigger game in the external world that we occupy, we have to make sure that we are forever expanding the stories and the beliefs that are within us. We've got to see which parts are serving us and making it possible for us to engage with a bigger world outside and the big opportunities that are present to us. And we've got to make sure that we excise the parts of the stories that are not serving us. So, of course, we as human beings, we experience our stories from within our stories. So how do we even engage with our stories so we don't allow them to hold us back? Well, for starters, we have to make space for those stories to reveal themselves to us. And the process of making space for them involves creating space of time, of thinking, of presence to ourselves, where we can really meet with ourselves and enter into an intimate relationship and dialogue with ourselves. To ask ourselves, what was happening for you or for myself in a particular situation? How was I showing up? What was I doing? What was I thinking? What was I experiencing in my body? We must remember that we are multidimensional human beings, and not all of our stories are only about the thoughts happening in our heads. Our stories and our belief systems are about the whole system. It's about everything that we have on board. And we've got to do what we can to become truly aware of what is happening for us in any given situation. Now, when we are triggered, it's very hard to do this. So typically, in order to become more self-aware, to create the space for us to uncover our stories, we have to set aside specific times. We have to become ritualistic about it. We have to create a practice that allows us to constantly be our own watcher and to become vigilant about how the thoughts that we have, the ways in which our nervous system is engaging with our external environment, is creating a barrier and a glass ceiling that stops us from moving forward. We've got to become clear about the things we want, and we've got to watch ourselves for alignment against those things that we are pursuing. So I want to share a very quick process with you for doing exactly that. The process I want to share with you is, once you've created the space in which to engage with yourself, is how to actually have a conversation with yourself and to recreate your story in a way that it serves you rather than encumbers you. Now, it's a four-part process. The first part is we've got to catch the story. The second part is we've got to challenge the story. The third part is we can recreate the story. And the fourth part is we can integrate the story. So let me share with you an experience I'm all too familiar with from my own personal experience, as well as from the experiences that I encounter with the people that I work with on a regular basis. Let's talk about Susan. Susan comes across a job opportunity in the organization she's working for. She reads the job description and she says immediately, oh my word, I think I could do this. I've been doing so much of this already. And then she reads the job requirements. And the job requirements has got 10 elements, and Susan only has 6. And there's an automatic story that kicks in for Susan. And she says, I only have 6 of the 10 elements. They won't give me an opportunity to apply or to interview. And so therefore, I'm not going to apply. I am not eligible for the role. Susan, in that moment, feels something in her body, maybe disappointment, and she accepts this truth that she is not eligible for this position. She's put her hand down instead of putting her hand up. And forever, Susan will remain in the role she's currently in. And then Susan will watch someone who is less trained, less experienced, and less qualified than her put up their hand, and she will notice that they succeed in the role. Let's think of this person as Amy. Amy did exactly what Susan did, but Amy felt exactly what Susan did. But what Amy did was she challenged the story. So I can more or less do the job, she says to herself. There are these 4 elements that I don't have, but could I learn them? Could I learn them from someone I already know? What is my aptitude to learn them? And is maybe they're asking for a degree, but really, do they need a degree to come and do the job? If I can do it with these hands, how can I demonstrate to them that I can do the job in spite of the fact that I don't have a qualification that is expressed on the job description? What body of evidence might I create so that I can confidently sit in an interview? And so instead of dissuading herself, Amy challenges her original story. And unlike Susan, she's going to put her hand up and she's going to proceed to the interview. Then the next part is recreate the story. The story that Amy is now going to say to herself is that I am able, eligible, and capable of learning how to do this job. It might take me a few moments, a few weeks to truly get my head around it, but I am going to put my hand up for this job. I am eligible and I'm going to apply. And the process of integrating is looking for those disturbances in her story where she might still be pulling back to an old version of a story and dealing with that and addressing that and challenging that and rebuilding or building upon the confidence that she already has in her recreated story until such a point where she's sitting in that interview fully confident that she is giving herself the best representation and giving herself the best opportunity to succeed at that interview. So I hope I have adequately shown you how, for Susan, the story stopped. She accepted it as truth and she didn't grapple with it. And the compound effect of that over the years in her career is incalculable. What are the stories that you are telling yourself that is holding you back in your career? What are the ways in which the stories and the beliefs that you have operate as a glass ceiling and stop you from growing in your career and achieving the things that you want to achieve? What bold actions, what really intimate and compassionate conversations might you need to have with yourself so you can reorganize the stories and the beliefs that are holding you back and shatter through your own glass ceilings? Please know that this is going to become a lifelong practice. Every single time we want to put our hands up for a new opportunity, we need to return to the conversations with ourselves. In fact, the invitation I have for you is to remain at conversation with yourself, remain engaged in the dialogues that are operating invisibly for yourself. The moment you make the invisible visible, you are able to really and truly engage with what is fact and what is fiction. And you can become the creator and the author of your own story, the bigger story of your career and your success. So I've created a little workbook that you can use to uncover your story and to recreate your story and ultimately to break through your glass ceiling. So that's me for now, and I hope that I will see you in later videos in this series of conversations. Bye for now.